power of a single moment with One Mo Moment. Get ready to hear the pivotal moments that have shaped the lives of extraordinary individuals. From inspirational stories and professional breakthroughs to personal anecdotes and life-changing decisions, One Mo Moment uncovers the essence of what drives us forward. Listen to conversations with industry experts, creatives, and everyday heroes, each sharing their unique journeys and valuable insights. Get ready to be inspired, motivated, and moved, because one moment has the potential to change everything. Now here's your host of One Mo Moment, Mo Gerhardt.
Welcome to another episode of One Mo Moment, the podcast where we dive into the pivotal moments that shape the lives of extraordinary individuals. I'm your host, Mo Gerhardt, and today we have an exciting guest who is part of an organization I personally know firsthand that makes a tremendous impact on the lives of many, including my own. Joining us is Adrena Spreacker from Canine Companions, a nonprofit organization that provides expertly trained service dogs to people with disabilities. Adrena has played a significant role in this organization, helping to change the lives one dog at a time. In this episode, we'll explore the mission of Canine Companions, the rigorous training process for these amazing dogs, and the life-changing impact they have on their handlers. We'll also hear about Adrena's journey with Canine Companions and the challenges and rewards of her work. So let's get started. Adrena, welcome to One Mo Moment. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Mo. Thank you so much.
I was thinking beforehand, and you and I go back pretty far. We met prior to my first service dog that I had with, at that time, was known as Canine Companions for Independence, now just Canine Companions, but you were also pregnant with, was that your daughter or your son at that point? I guess what year, or how old are they?
Yeah, so Trisha was born in 99 and Adam was born in 2003.
Oh, it was Adam's when I was there in 2003, and if I remember it almost seemed like the whole facility, there was this pregnancy fever going around. I think Christina, who was there, I think was also pregnant. If I'm not mistaken, I think maybe Gwen had either just had a baby. It was definitely baby fever around at that point in time.
all of our kids were pretty close in age.
Yep, that's great. And honestly, too, that just goes back to that family atmosphere that Canine Companions really exudes, and something that I fell in love with from the very beginning. So if you don't mind, Adrena, why don't you just go ahead, just briefly explain a little bit what is Canine Companions and how do they impact society?
Yeah, so Canine Companions was founded in 1975, and we are a national nonprofit organization that breeds, raises, trains, places, and then continues to follow up with our teams once our teams are placed through the lifetime of the team. I like to think that our impact, it is one dog at a time. But more than that, for me, it's one person at a time. One person that maybe, couldn't do something before on their own, but now with the dog by their side, they can do that. So if they're worried about dropping their keys when they're driving, they don't have to wait for someone to help them. They can do that independently. So, a lot of people ask why I've stayed as long as I have. And it's the people that I get to work with. It's the people that I get to meet, like yourself, as well as the folks that just continue to support us day in and day out.
Yep. For both of our sakes, I'll just say it hasn't been that long that you've been there, right? Wink, wink. It's funny though. You mentioned dropping the keys and having the service dog be able to get those for you. It's not funny's not the right word, but I actually had that experience prior to my first service dog, and I'm here in Michigan, the middle of winter, and it was actually while I was a student at Michigan State and dropped my keys. It was nighttime, and like I said, middle of winter, and had to wait probably about, I'll say 10, 15 minutes until finally, someone came by that I could ask for help. And then my life just so drastically changed for the better. After I had my first service dog from Canine
Yeah.
Companions, it was something that impacted my life so much that it actually led to my very first tattoo. I think I was telling you, there beforehand,
Yeah.
and that was something I thought I would never do. But that first one definitely sort of broke the glass, so to say. And seven tattoos later now, that one was still the first.
Right.
Talk to people or tell them a little bit about the different types of service dogs that CCI does do the training for, and even just the term itself, service dog. There's lots of misunderstandings, within society, and what does that mean?
Right. So with our service dogs that we train and place, there are different categories of placement. So our service dogs are typically dogs that are placed with adult individuals that can manage the dogs on their own. We have service with facilitator. Those dogs are placed as service dogs with an individual, but that individual may need a little bit of extra help from a parent or a spouse or, a loved one of some sort can help provide that feedback to the dog that the individual recipient may not be able to give. We also place hearing dogs that will alert to sounds that our deaf or hard of hearing clients aren't able to hear, and that can be at home or in public. We place service dogs with our veteran clients that may need an anxiety interrupter. Retrieval is also something that's important to them. And then just that interaction they may need if they are getting a little overstimulated when they're out in public. So those are the different types of service dogs. And service dogs, as a general rule, have access in public with their recipient that they were placed with and perform a trained task specifically for that individual. We also, as an organization, Canine Companions places facility dogs with individuals that are in a role where they are helping their clients or their students or whatever that role may be. So, physical therapist, occupational therapist, there are a lot of different roles that we use, forensic interviewers, just really to kind of break through some barriers and utilize the dog to help that individual or those individual clients reach their goal. Our facility dogs, because they're placed with the professional, that professional doesn't have public access with the dog. They would only have facility access because they're not helping that individual that they were placed with. They're helping their clients. And so I look that helps with the service dog versus, some other definitions that you might see.
Yeah, speaking of other definitions, I know one of the more common ones that people hear about are emotional support animals. And I think
Yes.
if you could explain the differences both from a legal standpoint and also a training standpoint of the difference between a service dog and an emotional support dog.
Sure. As far as like the legal part of it, I'm not an attorney, but my best the best way that I can explain it, emotional support dogs are invaluable to those that utilize them. They offer that comfort and support at home, but they aren't specifically trained to provide a task for that individual. The presence of that animal is what is comforting to them. So under the ADA, an emotional support animal is not recognized to be able to have public certification. And again, I'll just say for those that do have emotional support animals, they're invaluable to their they're being able to calm down in certain situations, to be able to to come home to that being that just wants them there. But as far as public certification goes, they wouldn't have that. You may see emotional support dogs on airlines and in housing. As far as housing and the airlines go, not necessarily governed by the ADA, is my understanding. They have different opportunities that they can that they can go by, some different laws that they can go by to allow that.
Yep, yeah, I think that's a key difference that honestly not many people outside of those that have used, whether it be a service dog or an emotional support animal, honestly know those differences. I know I can sort of say, like, when I was a student at MSU, and I had my first service dog, Ted, living in the dorms, like, Ted had access everywhere that I went, both classrooms, campus, cafeteria, all of those things. And then there were a couple students that had emotional support animals, and basically, like, they were allowed in their rooms, in their dorms, because they weren't a pet. There was a no pet policy for the dorms, but they could be in their rooms, but they didn't have access to like the cafeteria or classrooms or things along those lines that the licensed service dog had.
Sure.
So now, what's been your journey? You mentioned you've been with CCI for a while now. How did you get started with CCI, and what was sort of your background to get to that point?
So I'll try to be brief. It's a long journey, though. I
got time.
I've earned every grade.
We've got time.
So I grew up on a farm and thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. My first quarter of college at the Ohio State University, I decided that I, in fact, did not want to be a veterinarian, but I stayed in the animal science department because I knew I wanted to do something with animals. So I journeyed through, all of the animal science classes. My last quarter of college, just a basic education requirement. I was in a giant lecture hall, and I came across a man who was in a power chair. He had his papers on his tray, and he dropped his papers off of his tray as I was coming by. This was in the first week. And I helped him get his papers and got to know him a little bit. He asked me then, he said, can I borrow your notes from this class? Because the professor just goes too fast. I can't keep up. So we shared notes, and throughout the 10 weeks, and I got to know him a little bit better. And getting to know him, I found out that he had gone to college on a basketball scholarship. He had fallen asleep at the wheel and had a spinal cord injury. And then this was his first quarter back to school after his rehab and things like that. So that was something that was really impactful to me, is that, I had senioritis in the worst way. I'm not even going to lie. But he actually helped me, pay attention to that class and make sure that I was doing what I needed to do to get to the other side, to get to my degree. And what I noticed is, again, in this giant lecture hall, when we would leave, people would, walk in front of him or just not really pay any attention. He would have his head down, his shoulders rolled. And then there was one day that he came in with a dog. It wasn't a dog from Canine Companions, but his shoulders were back. His chin was up. He was looking at people. People were looking at him. And I said, I don't know what that is, but I need to do that. That is what I need to do. I didn't know how to do it. So I started talking to a friend who knew a puppy raiser from Canine Companions, and I started volunteering. So from volunteering, I was hired as kennel supervisor, and then journeyed my way through apprentice instructor, applicant program manager while I was training, and then to training manager for about 5 years, and then last year took over the role of program director at the North Central region. So it's been quite a journey, a lot of years involved in that, but I thought when I was growing up that I wanted to work with animals, and I do, and I enjoy that. But I think what really sparked me in wanting to do this is the response from that individual when he had his dog with him, that there was just something about him that, he he was taking charge, right? He wasn't just getting by. He was really taking charge. So that is what did it for me. It wasn't the dog at that point. It was how that dog made him feel.
Yeah, I love that story. And honestly, for all the years that we've known each other, I've never heard that story
Yeah.
from you. So that's really cool, and it ties some things together. You mentioned all the different roles. The first time that I came in contact with you was when you were the applicant director there for Canine
Yeah.
Companions, and walked me through that process with my very first service dog. And obviously that was Ted, is my first one, which I always thought was sort of funny because when people I didn't know, heard that it was Mo and Ted, they always assumed that the dog was Mo and I was Ted. But nope, it was the other way around. I was Mo and the dog was Ted. So that was always humorous. But then after my first service dog, after I had to put him down eventually, then had my successor dog, and once again went through Canine Companions, and that was an amazing experience too, and a learning experience to go through it a second time. All kinds of different emotions in play that you saw me experience, and that was with Lavoy. And now currently in my life, I live with my girlfriend. I have full-time nursing now, so the actual assistance components of the service dogs I didn't need, but now I have Belle, who was a release dog from Canine Companions, and it's been an impact and something in my life that I can't imagine ever going back without having a dog from Canine Companions. As you said, that gentleman that first sort of intrigued you into going into the profession, that confidence, that smile, all of those things I can 100% relate to. It's all true.
Yeah.
And for anybody that is ever considering a service dog, that there are lots of challenges that go along with having one. You have to remember that it's still a dog. It still has all the needs that every dog would have. It's not just a robot or anything like that, but the rewards are so amazing, so fulfilling. And I can't just thank you enough for everything that you were able to add into my life. And then once again, just for that continued friendship that we have to this day. It's been something that I'm forever grateful. And anytime that Canine Companions comes up, I'm always right there to help promote.
Absolutely. And we we talk a lot here about the impact that we have on others' lives. And I don't think that we talk enough about the impact that folks have on our lives, personally, professionally. And you're one of those people for me. I've learned so much from you over the years that we've known each other. I am just grateful for your trust and your honesty to tell me exactly how you're feeling at any given moment and not try to hide that from me, because knowing the emotions that you were going through made me better at my job. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we could talk
And
about those emotions. Yeah, and it really does. The emotions were all over the place, and I can talk about that a little bit personally with my first one, my first service dog, Ted. There was the initial excitement of just having that experience, going through the training and meeting Ted. And honestly, I vividly remember this, and I've told this story to so many people. When you go through the training component, there's a group of, for me it was about 10 people or so that were in that class that were going to be recipients of dogs. And on the very first day, the staff there at Canine Companions always said, don't fall in love with a dog and don't try to pick out a dog, because that's not our role. That's where your expertise, comes in. You're going to watch us throughout those first few days. That's a 2-week process, that team training. And so those first few days you watch to see the interactions, to see how the dog also interacts. And then from there, you do the matching to find the best pairing. And that first time with Ted, it was even though you say, don't fall in love with a dog, it was instantly that love at first sight type situation with Ted. And as much as I tried, my heart was already locked in. And obviously, I didn't have to say in that matter, but was fortunate enough where that pairing did take place. And Ted was amazing, and I can't say enough about that experience. Then, sort of going into my second dog, my successor dog, who was Lavoy, it was a different experience. Obviously, the same things are expressed those first days. Don't fall in love with a dog. Don't get yourself emotionally attached, because that pairing may not actually come through. And it was a different dog, actually a dog by the name of Carver, who was paired then with Dustin, and both of them, unfortunately, since passed away. They were in a car accident, and I just want to say to Dustin's family how amazing of a friend he was that I met, after that time, and I miss him so much. But Dustin actually then got paired with Carver, and I was paired with Lavoy, and that's where, like you said, talking about some of those emotions, I remember then going and talking with you in your office and basically almost sort of breaking down, because at that point, I didn't feel that emotional connection yet with Lavoy.
Right.
But, through that process, it showed me nothing but how amazing and how smart everyone there at Canine Companions are as far as making those matches, because Lavoy ended up being the perfect match for what I needed in that situation. And even though I didn't necessarily see it those first couple of weeks, or maybe even that first month, but beyond after that, I can't express how much he meant to me and how much he positively impacted my life. And I can't imagine not having him. And once again, as I say, it just speaks about the expertise of what you all see and know that your clients are going to need in those dogs. So maybe, I guess, going and speaking off my personal experiences, what is it that you all look for? What is it that you see to make these matches? Because as I said, I've made lots of friends from my multiple times going through the training, and they all have the exact same experience. They all have the exact same sentiments that the pairing is absolutely perfect for their needs and wants.
So, thank you for continually putting your trust in us. I think that's one of the things that, we, when we are making the placements, we know that we're making this placement for this person for a 10-year commitment, right? Like, at least a 10-year commitment if we're lucky. So, as far as the dogs go, we evaluate them continually when they are in the puppy raiser home. So the puppy raisers are folks that donate their love, money, time, treasure, talent, trust to us to raise a puppy from the time they're 8 weeks until they are 15 to 18 months old. And then they give them back to us. The dogs go into professional training with our trainers here. And when we get the dogs here, we're also evaluating them, medically. We go through, all of their medical evaluations. We go through their behavioral evaluations also. When the puppy raisers have the dogs, they are submitting monthly reports to us. And if they're having a behavioral issue or a medical issue or something like that, our puppy program department, addresses those right away. We know the dogs from before they're born. Like, we have, information on their parents. And so we have all of this information when the dogs come into professional training. Again, we do the medical and behavioral evaluations initially when they get here. And then we just get to know the dogs. We, our trainers have a string of with 7 or so dogs that that they're responsible for working with every day. And they get to know the dogs, they get to know their strengths and their weaknesses, their desire to learn and perform the skills that we're teaching them. So, it's all about getting to know who this dog is and what they have to give to the person that we're going to be putting them with. The flip side of that, so while all of this is happening, we also have our applicant program working with folks that at one point in time said, I wonder if a dog, if a service dog would be something that would be beneficial for me. So I think, it starts out with an idea, and then it turns into the application process, and then it turns into the dogs that we've had in professional training, meeting up with the folks that have gone through the process of, would a dog be right for me, and going through the application process, learning how the dogs might be helpful. There is a waiting list, so staying on that waiting list and bearing with us. But then before we invite folks to class, we make sure that we have a couple of dogs that we think could work well for that individual. Again, we know this dog, we know we know all of its ins and outs, right? Its strengths and its weaknesses. And through the application process, and I think you can attest, Mo, we ask a bunch of questions. So we know the dogs, we know the people on our waiting list. So when we're looking at inviting folks, we always start with our successors, so those that have had dogs from us before. And then we go to the folks that have been waiting the longest on the list. We look at that individual and what they're going to need. And then we look at the dogs that we have available. We're not going to invite someone to class to get a dog if we don't feel that we have a couple of dogs that could meet their needs. When we're looking at that, we want to make sure that because every person and every dog has their strengths and has their weaknesses, that we are, when we match those teams together, that we're highlighting those strengths and we're minimizing those weaknesses with that team. So I think it is, there's a lot of time and energy and thought that goes into it on the trainers side of it, the program staff side of that. And then, it also has a lot to do with the trust that our clients put into us and knowing that we are going to make the best match for them. Our dogs are all different. But I think every dog ends up being the perfect dog for that individual at the point in time that they needed them. So Ted and Lavoy were not really alike at all, but Ted was the dog that you needed going through college, and then Lavoy was the dog that you needed, after that, and all of the endeavors that you were going into. So I really feel like, we like to say that there's a little bit of magic in that, but I do think that, there's a whole bunch of work and knowledge and honesty that goes into making those placements. We rely on our trainers to not only say the wonderful things that there are to say about those dogs, but also the things that maybe wouldn't make them appropriate for each and every person. The dogs are appropriate, but maybe not for that person in that moment for them. So, I think that there's a lot that goes into it. And, there's, all of our trainers, our program staff, have a variety of experiences, even within Canine Companions and outside of Canine Companions. So those perspectives are great to have into a room when we're deciding who gets placed with whom. You don't have everyone, on the same line of thinking. You've got these people that are like, but what about this and what about that? And I really feel like those different perspectives make us a stronger team and, give us the quality placements that we put out.
Yeah, I think lots of things that you mentioned there are so key. And one thing that I can definitely reiterate, especially for anyone that may be looking to, possibly have their first service dog, within that application process is to be 100% honest about your needs. It's not about saying what you think that Canine Companions wants to hear. It's nothing like that. It truly is, as you mentioned, you want to be able to make this pairing a working relationship that's going to last, hopefully a good 10 years, if not more. But then even after that, even when the dog's retired, it's still going to be part of your life. And you want to be able to be sure that your needs are being fulfilled. So, like I said, for anyone that's ever possibly in the situation where they're in an applicant process with canine companions, my best advice is be 100% honest about your needs, about your abilities, about not just your strengths, but definitely about your weaknesses, because that's where you want this service dog to be able to fill those needs. And like you said, the two dogs that I had, Ted and LaVoy, at different points in my life, having muscular dystrophy was at different stages in my life as far as my abilities go, and I needed different things at those times. And yeah, those two dogs, they were almost sort of night and day, as far as their personalities in many ways. And that's sort of why I struggled at first when I was paired with LaVoy, because I still had those memories of Ted in my head and sort of just knew that working relationship, and not just working, but personal relationship with him too. So it was difficult. But then, like I said, once that LaVoy and I sort of built that trust together, built that relationship, it was perfect. And like I said, so for anyone ever looking to do it, you have to make sure that you're not trying to say what you think Canine Companions wants to hear. You need to make sure you're really speaking the truths about yourselves. I know you had mentioned sort of the puppy raisers early on with Canine Companions being a nonprofit. I know the volunteers that are able to help and work with Canine Companions are a vital part of being able for the program to be able to exist. How can people, if they do have an interest, what is available as far as volunteer opportunities, and what would they need to be able to do?
So there are a lot of volunteer opportunities within Canine Companions. I think when folks initially think about volunteering, they think about puppy raising. Puppy raising is very important, but that's not the only way that folks can support us. We have thousands of volunteers across the country that support our mission. And we wouldn't be able, as you mentioned, we wouldn't be able to be successful without that support. There are a lot of opportunities on campuses if you live near a campus, to be able to, come out and do, beautification. So painting or pulling weeds, that sort of thing. There are opportunities to help out with cleaning kennels and other things like that to help with the dogs. We have chapters in different areas throughout our region, throughout the United States. There are chapter leaders. I mentioned puppy raisers, breeder caretakers that are closer to our headquarters in Santa Rosa, and just simply advocating for Canine Companions, being a committee leader, sharing a social media post that, just getting the word out about who we are and helping more and more people learn about us and see that Canine Companions is accessible to them. So I think those are a lot of different ways that our volunteers can help us out. One of the things that I'll say, and you'll hear this again, is if someone is interested in finding out about volunteer opportunities, visiting our website, which is www.canine.org, is the best way to find out a lot more about us as an organization, and then opportunities that are out there for folks to be able to volunteer.
Yep, and I think too a couple things. One, you mentioned the different campuses, different sites. You're in the North Central region for Canine Companions. How many regions are there, and sort of those locations across the country in case people do have that interest?
We have 6 regional centers. Our headquarters shares an office with our Northwest region, and that is in Santa Rosa, California. We have another region that is our Southwest region that is in Oceanside, California. We have a regional office in Texas, it's in Irving, Texas. We are here in New Albany, Ohio, on our campus that we just moved into in 2020. We had a much smaller campus before this, but The other regional offices, our Southeast office is in Orlando, Florida, and then our Northeast office is also is in New York. It's actually on Long Island. So those are our regional offices, and the states are broken up. Like our regions are broken up. So if someone's interested and they're like, well, I know Adrena's the program director, but you're going to find different program directors at each of those regions that are equally as cool as me. So
well, I don't know about that, but it's you do mention the beautiful campuses, and when I was going through those first two trainings, I was at the much smaller facility in Delaware, Ohio. I'm sort of the neighbor there to New Albany. But then when I was able to be placed with Bell, that's where I first was able to tour that new campus, and it is gorgeous. I just want to say for anybody because I know that was a huge fundraising process that went through to be able to create that campus, and the North Central, if I'm not mistaken, was the last one to really sort of get that upgrade, you could say, from the different regions across the country. And it is just gorgeous. It is so beautiful to be able to see. And it's also just exciting since I know lots of the people that work there with Canine Companions. Just exciting to know that you guys have that first-class facility that you're able to go into each and every day. And then also for the clients, the patients, the people that are getting the pairings with the dogs, the new dormitory facility that's also there in New Albany. I don't know if you can maybe touch on what is all included on that campus.
Yeah, absolutely. So where we were before was here's how I like to put it. We were able to do really good work out of a facility that didn't meet our needs for a lot of years. But we were still working hard and we were getting things done. When we moved in 2020 to our new campus, we have 3 separate buildings. So our administration building, where we have our philanthropy team, our fundraising team. We also have our program managers over here. We have our kennel. So this is Hearts and Heroes Hall is the administration building that we're in. We also have our Schultz Canine Center, which is where the kennels are for the dogs. That's where a lot of our trainers are over there. And those, they're state-of-the-art kennels for our dogs. The dogs during the day, they don't spend a ton of time in there because they're out being trained. But, the kennels are great. Again, state-of-the-art. And then, as you were mentioning, Mo, we have our new leash hall, which is our training and living building. So there's a big training room that we use for training of the dogs that are in the second semester or the last part of their training. But also we use that for team training. So there's a very large room over there that we're able to use when we have folks come in and we're making those pairings with the individuals and the dogs. The one thing that we had been lacking, that we had been asking for as a staff, that we had been asking for a long time, were guest rooms that our clients could stay in when they were here. A long time ago, I did the math, and it was really expensive for folks to not only be off work for a certain amount of time, but then also pay for a hotel, to pay for gas, to pay for all of that. So the guest rooms that we have now, we have 16 guest rooms on site. There are 14 that have accessible roll-in showers, 2 have bathtubs. They're big. All of the furniture moves around in it. So if someone has something that is particular to their needs and where they need things to be situated in their room, they can move that stuff around as they see fit. Standard guest rooms are available at no charge to our clients here during team training. The commute is much smaller, just a hallway to get to the training class. we are able to provide, we have donors that provide lunch daily for those team training classes, and they're able to provide that out of the kitchen that we have there. And the lunches are the only thing that we provide, but the breakfast and dinner, our clients are able to have a full functioning kitchen for their breakfast, dinner, and whatever other needs they may have. So it's something that was on our wish list for a really long time. And, I think folks were like, oh, okay, well, when they get there, what are they going to want next? We've been here for, for almost 4 years now. And I still, when I sit back and look at what we have, I still kind of have to pinch myself that, it's here. For 25 years of my career, it was, we're going to do this. And we're finally here. So, and not just for our staff. It's wonderful for our staff. Don't get me wrong. But I think for our clients, knowing that those expenses, that travel time, all of that stuff, is negated by us being able to have the facilities that work for them is something that's important.
It's huge. I mean, I went through it, like you said, in that previous facility twice, and I think you mentioned the food and things like that. I think I've lived at Cracker Barrel for those 2 weeks, or
Yes.
the breakfast and dinners, and it's also a great opportunity to build relationships for the team that's there, for the students. I know before people were spread across, like 3 or 4 different hotels that were close in the area. So I do have some friends to this day that I met during those times. But, there really were maybe 4 of us in each of those hotels, as opposed to a class of 10, or, maybe a large class of 15, something like that, that could all be together and stay together for those 2 weeks. I just can't imagine the friendships that are cultivated, that, are long lasting, simply because of that, and being able to share those experiences. And also, I'm just as thrilled, like you said, for the staff. I know you said it's not about you guys, but in many ways it is. I mean, without you, then these pairings would not be able to be made, and these lives would not be able to be changed for the better. So it was well deserved. As I mentioned, it was the last campus for all the regional facilities across the country to be able to have those on site. So I'm thrilled for you guys. And like I said, when I was able to visit for the first time a few years ago, I was just blown away and so thrilled for everyone that gets to experience that new site.
Well, thank you, Mo. I appreciate that.
So now, obviously, there are lots of costs that are involved with raising a service dog. One of the beautiful aspect of Canine Companions, which also separates itself, because there are lots of different organizations out there that do training with service dogs, and they all have their pros and their cons. But Canine Companions, one of the beautiful aspects about it is there's no fee for the dog for the recipients, but yet we all know that there are many expenses that go along with the training aspect to get to that point. So what is the ballpark figure that Canine Companions estimates that the cost of training that dog prior to actually that graduation, where it gets turned over and is with the recipient full time?
Right. So, from birth to retirement. So we throw that in there because there's still costs that happen, and I can talk about that in a minute. That the cost is estimated to be around $50,000 per dog from birth to retirement. So that takes into account the breeder caretaker, the puppy raiser, when the dogs get here and we do all of the medical evaluations, the staff time and things like that, getting the dogs through team training. And then one of the things that I think is very important to Canine Companions is our follow-up program with our clients. We don't just place the dogs. We continue to support our teams. Once our teams graduate, we follow up once a month for the first 6 months with a phone call. And then within the first year, we want to see them in person for the first 3 years. And then as long as everything's going well, we'll give a little bit longer certification to them, either 2 or 3 years. And then as the dog is getting older in the team, we'll go back to once a year, just to make sure that we're supporting a lot on the front end of that placement, because not everyone bonds as quickly. Some bonds don't take as quickly as others, as you have experienced. But then later in the dog's life, we do like to see the dogs more often, see the team more often, so that we can start looking at, thinking about, and preparing the graduate for potential retirement of that dog. And there's not a particular age that we, right now anyway, that we say this dog has to retire. A lot of it has to do with the health of the dog and what they're doing for the individual, and making sure that the team is healthy and well cared for. But following up with our clients is something that has been just a blessing for me to be able to do year in and year out. So, doing follow-ups made me a better trainer. Not currently training right now. Seeing folks working with the dogs gives us a whole bunch of information about how we're training and that sort of thing. So
I think what's also key is the term retirement. First of all, that doesn't mean putting the dog down. That simply means that they are retiring from active service. But one of the great aspects, though, of canine companions, once the dog does reach that age, the owner or the recipient is still able then to keep that dog as a pet, so that you don't have to turn it back in to canine companions. This is someone that obviously you've bonded with for a big stage of your life, and that's part of your family. It really is a family member. So when that retirement stage does occur, then the dog can live out those last few years and just enjoying retirement, kicking back, relaxing, and just being that dog. One other thing I want to touch on, though, too, is that sometimes there's the misperception, I think, for people, that for service dogs, that it's not necessarily punishment, but that this is like hard work and not fair for those dogs. And I just want to be able to say, from my experiences, my service dogs were happiest when they were working. I mean, it was so apparent. They loved their role, their job. And as I said, like, there would be times, and this is not just something I'm making up, this is legit, where I would drop something on purpose just so that they would have that opportunity to go pick it up, because you could see, like, they were excited, they were proud, they wanted to be able to help me, and they felt as if obviously they were being a service. So for anyone that maybe has that perception that this is not fair for the dogs, that it's taking them away from some other aspect, I can tell you firsthand that's exactly the opposite of what happens. These dogs love being service dogs.
And the way that we train the dogs is positive, and it is something like the dogs are like stoked to be able to do the things, and then understand that the person that just told them to do something is super excited that they did it. They're excited to work. So thank you for mentioning that, because it is something that is a misconception. Another thing, just while we're on this topic, is a lot of folks ask if the service dogs ever get downtime or get to play. Yes.
They love their release time.
Yes, they do. And release tells them that they can do whatever they want within the realm of appropriate behavior. But that's the skill, the verbal cue that we use for that. The dogs are actually required to get 30 to 60 minutes of exercise a day, because when we place them, they're 2-year-old dogs. So they're still pretty young, and they need those energy outlets to be able to focus on the work that they need to do. So but they so enjoy working. It just really works their minds. And then, the either walking or running, or that just really keeps their muscles going, and
Yep.
all of that kind of stuff. So it's so important. And the dogs are, like you said, they're happiest when they're working.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I can attest to that firsthand. You did mention release actually being the verbal cue or command
Yeah.
for the dogs to be able to have that playtime. When upon placement with the recipient, approximately how many different commands are these service dogs trained to be able to respond to?
Over 40. We train all of the dogs in a very similar way. Some of the dogs will learn a couple of other things, just depending on the client or clients that we're looking at for them in that class. But yeah, they all know 40 plus skills.
I remember from team training, these aren't tricks. These are commands.
No.
These are specific cues given, obviously, once again, for a need
Yeah.
of the recipient. You mentioned that you found yourself wanting to get involved with Canine Companions because of that firsthand experience with that gentleman in that lecture that you had. Can you think of any other success stories, maybe of individuals that you can recall that have gone through Canine Companions that for one reason or another just sort of stick in your mind?
There are a lot. When I was preparing for this, I came across a few emails that were sent to us
Oh, I'd love it.
from individuals that I'd like to share.
Yes, please. This is going to be, I can't wait.
And so now I just need to find one.
It's funny you
This might
mentioned
be
this, though,
easy.
because I remember you actually, with my first service dog, Ted, you actually had me write a little blurb for a newsletter, for the Canine Companions newsletter. And
Yeah.
I remember doing that, and I still have copies of that from all those years back, almost 20 years ago now. When I think about it, geez, that's crazy. But yeah, I'm excited. What do you have for us?
All right. So this was written to our graduate program manager from the mom who is a facilitator of a service book facilitator team. And I'm not going to say the dog's name or the person's name. I just wanted to write to say thank you again for all you do. My son has had a rough few weeks, bringing more questions than we have answers. Today, he went in for a long blood draw, and the nurses were so amazed by his bond with his dog and the dog's responsiveness. They kept asking me about Canine Companions, and the dog was such a huge support. At one point, my son started to hyperventilate from being so anxious, and the dog moved up a little closer to him and leaned in and kept licking his hand. I'm not sure we can ever express our gratitude enough for matching the dog with my son together. I think for our service book facilitator teams, the dogs do help out a lot at home with skills or with different therapies and things like that. But if we're being completely honest, for some of the kids that we serve, they are in the hospital a lot. They're getting blood draws a lot. They're, going into places that they don't have a very positive outlook on. So to be able to take the service dog in with them and have that support, having the dog interact with them to distract them or apply some deep pressure to help get them through that blood draw or, those evaluations. I think that is something that is incredibly important. Another one is from a graduate. This is a service graduate. I'm honestly overcome with emotion right now. I can't even put into words. I feel indebted to everybody who has contributed and put their time and effort into training my dog. I will take this gift because that is truly what it is, a gift bigger than words, one that will change my life in ways that you can't even begin to imagine. And I will go forth wholeheartedly taking on this responsibility and doing everything in my power to utilize and get the most out of such an amazing opportunity that I've been given. Thank you so much for all the people involved with Canine Companions, to the puppy raisers. You have no idea what this means to me or how it will forever change my life, because no doubt it will. My life will never be the same.
Wow. I mean, that one I can relate to 100%. Everything that was said right there, I fully experienced, still experience. And like I said, that's one of the reasons, Adrena, that I personally wanted to be able to have you on, to be able to do this podcast, because one, I wanted, first of all, just to be able to express again my gratitude and thanks for canine companions. Also, you specifically, I wanted other people to be able to hear about the possibility, that option, if in their life they need that role of a service dog, and then just for other people too, just to hear about it, to be able to volunteer, to donate. This is an amazing, amazing organization. It's honestly at the top of my list as far as organizations I like to donate to. It's impacted my life. I've seen it impact others. I've been able to spread the word to others. My cousin, his son, you mentioned the site, the region in Texas. He was born with multiple disabilities and they went through it, and he has a canine companion, and it's changed his life for the better. I honestly, I can't say enough, and I'm so thankful to be able to share this experience with everyone right now. Now, we have mentioned as far as how this has impacted people's lives, and also the training that goes into it, the volunteers, but out in public, if you're out in public and you see somebody with a canine companion, what should people know when they're out in public and see these dogs?
So we have puppy raisers that take the dogs out in public for canine companions. Those have yellow vests on. Our graduates have blue vests. And I think the thing to know, regardless of what color vest, is to say hello to the person first. We have a lot of folks that, when I was training and I would take the dogs on field trips, they would walk by and say hi to the dog. And I'm like, well, okay, that's fine. But, in having the opportunity to share this with your audience, Mo, I would just say hello to the person first. If you have a question about, where they got the dog or what the dog does for them, it's fine to be curious. It's fine to ask those questions. If you want to pet the dog, ask first. And then don't be offended if the answer is no. We have some of our puppy raisers and some of our graduates, as you mentioned, the dogs are not perfect. They're dogs. They may be working on something where they need the dog's complete focus on them. They may ask you, hey, do you want to pet the dog? Because maybe they're working on the dog being calm for greetings or something like that. But, just following the lead of the person who has the dog and not just coming up to pet or calling the dog to you or anything like that. Just really respecting the boundaries and respecting that relationship between the dog and its handler.
You mentioned the vest, and I just want to quickly, I know I don't want to be a negative here, but there are lots of fraudulent vests out there.
There are.
Can you just talk about that, I guess, for a little bit, and how that can negatively impact the actual legitimate service dogs?
Yeah, sure. So, as far as the legal aspect, and again, I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is there are really great service dogs out there that have been self-trained. A vest isn't needed for a service dog. However, a service dog that is performing a task in public, that is the definition that is covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So some folks are going online, getting a vest that says service on it because they want to be able to take their pet out into public. A lot of those dogs aren't performing tasks or skills. They're not service dogs. They're just pets that the individual wants to have with them. And it is a detriment to legitimate working service dogs. A lot of the dogs will bark or growl at people or other dogs that might be in the environment. They also may go after, in an aggressive way, a dog that is perfectly behaving. We, unfortunately, Canine Companions has had several instances of a fraudulent service dog attacking one of our dogs. So that has made a negative impact on our graduates, on those dogs. And for folks that are seeing that, if they're just seeing service dog on that vest, then they might think that that's how service dogs act, when indeed it is not how an appropriate service dog should act in public. There are some guidelines, again, with the ADA that says that the dog should be, the technical term of it is unobtrusive. So it shouldn't be barking or growling. It should be well kept and under control in public. So, I do think that a lot of folks that just want to have their pet dog out in public has had a really negative impact on how businesses view service dogs in public.
I think that's huge, and that's what people need to understand is when people do have these fraudulent vests or are taking their pets out illegally, when they do have episodes, that does negatively impact the owners of real service dogs because it does put a negative thought process in business owners' minds, in restaurant owners' minds, and also just in the general public's mind because they think that these dogs do have these sort of experiences or these acts on a normal basis, and that's just not what happens. So please, personally and then also professionally, just if this is something you have done, I encourage you and urge you not to do this anymore. It does have a very negative impact on those with actual disabilities. Okay,
Yes.
So now, Adrena, now you have said program manager. You've worked your way sort of up through Canine Companions. What's in store for your future? Also, are there any upcoming projects or initiatives that Canine Companions is working on? What sort of is the next progressional step?
For me, like I said, I've just been in this role for a year, and I'm enjoying it. In my role, I get to problem solve and oversee a staff of folks that are amazing at what they do. As far as Canine Companions goes, we are celebrating 50 years as an organization next year. So look out on social media for all of the opportunities for folks to join in and celebrate with us. We do have a pilot program right now in Seattle, Washington. It is, I think there are 8-ish dogs up there now that are with trainers, and they'll do a team training class in that area. So it's an opportunity to build our presence in the Seattle area. We're actually building relationships with local sports teams and media outlets out there. So getting our name out a little bit more. We are looking at expanding our prison puppy raising program. That is something that is not only beneficial to Canine Companions, getting well-trained dogs to us, but it is also beneficial to the incarcerated individuals. That's something that we hear time and time again on how, these dogs change lives. When we say that, we think about how they changed the life of the graduate, but they also changed the lives of puppy raisers, regardless of where they are. They changed the lives of the trainers, the staff. My life has been changed by a lot of dogs and a lot of people. So that's something that is important to us, is having a positive impact on folks. So again, looking at expanding the prison puppy raising program, we are, looking at doing more outreach. We're always striving to expand our IND initiative. We actually have a staff member on site, not on site. We have a staff member on staff that her position is to be able to better prepare our volunteers on our staff to go do outreach and bring Canine Companions closer to our community members. We have our Canine Alert for veterans. It's a device that tracks heart rate and alerts the dog when the individual is sleeping, so that the dog can respond and wake the person up before they get too far into a nightmare. So it's a nightmare interruption device. So that's something that Canine Companions has gotten to, and we're really looking forward to seeing how that continues to grow. So we've got a lot of things going, and again, you can follow, or your followers can follow us on all of the social medias at Canine, and again, go to canine.org and learn more about it.
First of all, that's amazing. The anti-nightmare, I can't remember the exact term that you called that, but that is just amazing. That's so cool. Amazing what these dogs can be trained to do. And I did want to mention the different social media outlets. And then also, as far as if people are looking to donate, obviously you did mention canine.org, but what are maybe some other ways that they can donate, whether that's through merchandise or just straight donation?
We have a lot of fundraisers that are happening. If folks go to Facebook and put in Dog Fest, you'll see one of North Central's biggest fundraisers. It's a peer-to-peer fundraiser And that happens September 15th here on our campus. But there are a lot of opportunities to donate to folks in that respect. If donating online is something that folks aren't comfortable with, you can call our office. You can write a check to Canine Companions and, send that to the regional center that's closest to you or the one that you want to support. If any of those things don't work, or if there are, if you wanted to donate something in particular to, an in-kind versus a cash donation, just contact the region and find out who you need to talk to about that particular donation. And we'll have some conversations about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure too, even like just pet supplies for the facilities itself that go along with the training. I'm sure there's opportunities on that front too, if people locally want to be able to donate that way. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a list of certain things that we utilize that we give a kind of a, for lack of a better term, a starter kit that we give to all of our graduates that has, basic things in it to help our graduates get on their way. And we have a list of those things that we provide. So if someone wanted to provide, they could contact us for a list of those items, and we could certainly send them, Chewy, Amazon, everyone has those. So
Yep. And I know you mentioned earlier there's the food opportunities for those people if they like to be able to prepare foods for a class, for one of the group trainings. I'm sure too for some of those volunteer experiences, students out there, if you're looking to go into vet school, something like that, and I'm sure those volunteer experiences, cleaning out kennels, all of those stuff that doesn't necessarily sound like a fun job. That's the perfect type of resume builder that vet schools, I'm sure, are looking for to be able to enhance an applicant's resume.
Absolutely. We have a staff member who we've had actually over the years had several staff members that came here to get some experience before moving on to vet school. So yeah, absolutely. And then also, you had mentioned the food donations for team training classes. Those are an integral part. You can talk more about that, just having that lunch provided. It also gives our volunteers an opportunity to kind of see their work come together for those placements also. But if you're like, oh gosh, well, I don't live in New Albany, so I can't do that. There are ways that you could sponsor a lunch. And, if you wanted to contact our regional office, we can put you in touch with the person that takes care of that. And if it's a monetary donation, she can take care of the rest.
And there's even things like school supplies, the dry erase markers, binders. Every student's given a binder, when they first come in. So there's so many ways that you can get involved, and I can't encourage you enough to get involved as far as the listeners to get involved with Canine Companions. It's a life-changing organization. That's honestly putting it mild. In some ways, it's even bigger than that, but it is sort of one of those things that can't even put into words. I'm so thankful for what Canine Companions has added to my life, the friendships within Canine Companions, obviously yourself, Adrena, but also Eric, Suzanne, Gwen, Tanya, Christine, Regina from years past. These are lifelong relationships that I'll always have and cherish, that otherwise would never have been part of my life if I hadn't been introduced to Canine Companions. Or honestly, I should say if my parents hadn't been introduced to Canine Companions, because they were the ones then that, brought information, encouraged me to be able to go through the applicant process. So, Adrena, I can't thank you enough. I could talk to you for hours as far as Canine Companions. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for everything you've meant in my life. And I love the fact that you're a lifelong friend. I can tell the audience listeners too throughout this whole broadcast or podcast, Belle, my release Canine Companion, has been laying here by my side the whole time. You can't see it, but she's right over here to my left. And I have a wall dedicated in my house to my previous Canine Companions, Ted and Lavoy. They've impacted not just my life, but also my parents' life, my brother's life, my friends' life. Thank you once again, just everything. And I'd say more. I'd just go on and on if I could. But honestly, from the bottom of my heart, I love all of you and thank you for everything that you continue to do, not just for me, but for everybody.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here when I saw that you were doing podcasts and then you invited me. I was like, me. But I am grateful for you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to just get to speak with you about some different things, but also share the word about Canine Companion and the wonderful things that this organization has done for individuals, for our teams, and for me, personally and professionally. I'm just incredibly grateful for the opportunity to share this. And, that love goes right back to you. Like I said earlier, I've learned so much from you and, and some of the things that you said in the years that I've known you. When I'm working with folks, those things just kind of, go through my head and I know the answers that I need to give, or I know that I just need to listen. So thank you for being you. Thank you for inviting me on, and thank you for letting me share about Canine Companions.
Of course, my pleasure. So, to our audience, thank you for joining us on this heartwarming episode of One Moment. It was truly inspiring to hear from Adrena about the incredible work being done by Canine Companions. Adrena, once again, thank you for sharing your journey and the amazing stories of the service dogs and their handlers. Your dedication and the impact of Canine Companions is truly commendable. For our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to One Moment. Leave a comment, like it. Your support helps me continue to bring you inspiring and engaging content. Stay tuned for future episodes where we'll explore more pivotal moments with extraordinary guests that shape our lives. Until then, remember, it's not the diagnosis that determines your outcome. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of One Moment. We hope you were inspired by the incredible stories and insights shared today. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Don't miss our upcoming episodes where we'll continue to explore the pivotal moments that shape extraordinary lives. Stay tuned for more inspiring guests, powerful stories, and valuable lessons that will motivate and move you. Join us next time for another unforgettable One Moment. Until then, remember, it's not the diagnosis that determines your outcome.